The planet of Valcor once shone like a jewel among the stars. Its towers reached toward the twin suns, its oceans glittered with silver-blue light, and its people had long forgotten the meaning of war. For generations, the Valcor had built a peaceful society based on science, art, and unity. But now everything was burning. The sky was filled with fire. Enemy ships, black and sharp as knives, rained destruction from orbit. The ground shook as energy blasts tore through cities. The proud spires of the Valcor capital, once symbols of hope, were falling into rubble. The invading force called themselves the Dreth Dominion, a ruthless species that believed the weak existed only to serve or die. Inside a damaged research facility, a Valcor scientist named Lura stood before a glowing console. Her pale blue skin was bruised, and one of her arms hung limp at her side. Around her, alarms wailed. Broken screens flashed warnings. But she ignored the pain. She had one task left to complete. "Come on," she whispered to the machine. "Just one signal. One chance." For weeks, Lura had been working on a long-range distress beacon, something that could reach far beyond their local systems. The Valcor Council had refused to use it, afraid of what unknown races might answer. But now there was nothing left to lose. Their fleets were destroyed, their leaders dead or captured. The Dreth were hunting down survivors like animals. A young technician, barely more than a boy, rushed into the room. "Lura, the shield is failing. We have to leave." She didn't look up. "Go, get to the tunnels. I'll finish this." He hesitated, his eyes wide with fear. Who could even hear us out there? "The Union has already turned away. No one cares." Lura gave a faint smile. "Someone will hear, somewhere." The boy ran, and she turned back to the console. Her hands moved quickly, adjusting the ancient array of antennas buried beneath the city. The beacon had been built centuries ago, a relic of exploration days long past. It wasn't meant to send messages across galaxies, but she forced it to. She poured all remaining energy from the power cores into one desperate burst. A column of blue light shot into the night sky, cutting through clouds and fire. The signal left Valcor, carrying her message into the void. Her voice, calm but trembling, echoed through space. "To any who can hear this message. This is Lura of Valcor. Our people are under attack. We beg for aid, please, help us." As the console sparked and died, she fell to her knees, exhausted. The roof cracked open above her. She looked up through smoke and saw Dreth ships blotting out the stars. She closed her eyes, whispering a prayer to the universe. Far away, light years beyond the borders of the known galaxy, the signal traveled through dark space. It crossed regions long abandoned where no one dared to venture. It passed the ruins of old stations, silent asteroid belts, and dead worlds marked only with warnings on star charts. Deathworld Zone 0. No one went there anymore. The Galactic Union had erased it from their maps ages ago. Legend said it was the home of a species too violent, too unpredictable, and too dangerous to coexist with others. The stories called them the Deathworlders, creatures, born from a planet so harsh that survival itself was an act of war. The signal entered that forgotten region and vanished from the Union's sensors. Deep within the dark expanse, something ancient stirred. In orbit above a quiet blue planet, old satellites detected the signal. They sent it to a hidden station beneath the moon's surface, a facility that had been silent for generations. The message played in a dark command room, echoing through speakers coated in dust. A man stood listening. He had gray at his temples, sharp eyes, and a calm face hardened by years of service. His name was Commander Alex Carter of the Terran Defense Command. For 2 centuries, humanity had stayed quiet. They had watched the galaxy from a distance, refusing to join the great councils and trade alliances that had once tried to control them. Long ago, after a brutal war, the other races had labeled Earth as a death world and its people as monsters. So humans withdrew. They stopped reaching out, stopped sending ships beyond their territory, and built their own empire in silence. Now, as Carter listened to the alien woman's desperate words, he felt a chill. He replayed the message again. The tone of fear in her voice, the distant explosions in the background, they were all too familiar. It reminded him of Earth's own past, of cities that once burned, of families that once begged for help that never came. He turned to his second-in-command, Captain Laura Hayes. "Where did this come from?" "Outer Orion Spur," she replied, her fingers moving across the console. "Signal's old-fashioned but strong. Whoever sent it used massive energy to reach us. It's coming from a planet called Valcor. Carter studied the star map. Never heard of it. Most haven't, she said. It's far outside Union control. Looks like it's under attack. He frowned, staring at the map in silence. For years, Earth had avoided involvement in galactic affairs. But the words of the message kept replaying in his mind. We beg for aid. Please help us. Finally, he said quietly. Patch it to Fleet Command. Within hours, the top brass of the Terran Defense Force assembled in the Lunar Command Dome. The Great Hall glowed with soft blue light, and holographic images of distant stars hung in the air. Old admirals, scarred veterans, and quiet strategists filled the room. At the head of the table stood Admiral Grace Nolan, a woman known for her sharp judgment and colder patience. She listened to the distress call without emotion, then looked at Carter. Do you believe it's real? She asked. Carter nodded. Yes, ma'am. The signal's authentic. The Valcor are under attack by a species called the Dreth Dominion. Their cities are being destroyed. Why should this concern us? Another officer asked. We swore never to interfere again. The galaxy made it clear we're not welcome. Carter met his eyes. Because someone asked for help. And we can help. The room went silent. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Admiral Nolan said, You're proposing we break 2 centuries of isolation? I'm proposing we remember who we are, Carter said. When we stopped reaching out, we didn't become peaceful. We became ghosts. Maybe it's time the galaxy remembered that ghosts can still fight. A faint smile touched Nolan's lips. You always had a way with words, Commander. She turned to the others. Begin preparations. I'm activating Operation Aegis. As the meeting ended, the order spread across Earth and its colonies. Massive orbital shipyards that had been silent for decades roared back to life. Engines hummed. Lights blazed. Drones and workers hurried through the skeletons of enormous vessels as ancient war machines were reawakened. In the blackness above the planet, the flagship Argent Dawn came online. Its hull shimmered with reflective armor, its cannons gleaming in the starlight. One by one, other ships followed, destroyers, carriers and cruisers, all bearing the mark of the Terran Federation. From space, Earth looked peaceful, but beneath that calm surface, the forge of war was alive again. Carter stood on the bridge of the Argent Dawn as the fleet prepared to depart. The hum of reactors filled the air. Around him, officers checked systems, coordinates, and weapon arrays. He looked out at the stars, the same stars that had once turned their backs on humanity. Captain Hayes joined him, her voice low. Do you think we're ready for this? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he watched as the moon's shadow passed over Earth as the homeworld glowed faintly beneath. We were born ready, he finally said. The galaxy called us Deathworlders because we survived everything our planet threw at us. We don't start wars, Laura, but we don't run from them either. Then we're really going, she said softly. Yes, he replied. And when we get there, we'll remind them what it means to ask for help from humanity. The fleet's engines lit the dark sky. One by one, the ships vanished into faster-than-light travel, streaks of blue trailing behind. Back on Valcor, Laura sat among ruins. The ground trembled under distant thunder. She didn't know if her message had reached anyone. Her power was gone, her world dying, but still she looked to the stars and whispered, Please, someone, hear us. In that moment, light flared across the distant sky, faint, but real. A new signal entered Valcor's orbit. Coded in an unknown language, it said only 6 words. This is the Terran Defense Command. The message repeated once more, calm and cold. Your distress signal has been received. Laura stared upward, her eyes wide. The stars seemed to move as if something vast was approaching through the darkness. No one on Valcor knew what they had just awakened, but across the dying world, every survivor who could still look up felt the same strange thing, hope mixed with fear. Because somewhere beyond the edge of known space, the Deathworlders had heard the call, and they were coming. The great engines of the Terran fleet roared as they left orbit. Thousands of tons of steel and energy moved through space with calm precision. On every deck, soldiers and officers worked in silence. The air was filled with tension but also with purpose. For the first time in 200 years, the humans were leaving their safe borders. Commander Alex Carter stood on the bridge of the Argent Dawn, watching the stars shift as the ship moved through faster-than-light travel. Around him, the crew worked quietly. Screens glowed with blue light and the steady hum of power filled the room. Captain Laura Hayes approached him with a datapad. All ships are in formation, sir. We're on course to Valcor. Estimated arrival in 32 hours. Carter nodded. How are the crews holding up? Focused, she said. Some are nervous. It's been a long time since anyone in the fleet has seen real combat. Carter gave a faint smile. They'll remember fast. Humans always do. He turned toward the main viewing screen. Ahead, a faint swirl of blue light marked the direction of Valcor's system. He couldn't stop thinking about the voice in the distress call. Laura's words still echoed in his mind, the fear, the desperation. He had seen that same look once before, on Earth, during his years in the Defense Corps. Civilians caught in bombings, children crying in the dark. That was long ago, but some memories never faded. He clenched his hands behind his back and said softly, "We won't let it happen again." In the control pit below, Lieutenant Nora Price monitored ship movements. She was young, sharp, and known for her calm even under pressure. "Sir, we're getting intermittent signals from the Valcor system. Scattered transmissions. It looks bad. Put them through," Carter ordered. The speakers filled with broken voices, screams, static, and faint words in the alien language. Then silence. The crew listened, faces pale. Hayes looked at Carter. "We might be too late." Carter shook his head. "We'll see about that." Far away, on the Valcor homeworld, the battle was still raging. The Dreth Dominion's ships filled the sky, black clouds of metal blotting out the light of the suns. Their ground forces swept through ruined cities, capturing survivors and destroying what remained. Laura and a small group of refugees hid in the lower tunnels beneath the capital. The air was thick with dust and the sound of explosions echoed above them. One of the refugees, an older Valcor male, looked at her. "You sent the signal. Did anyone answer?" Laura hesitated. Someone did. They called themselves the Terran Defense Command. The others looked at her with confusion. "Terran, who are they?" "I don't know," she said softly. But the tone of their message, it was calm, cold. They sounded different. "Different how?" the man asked. She looked up at the cracked ceiling, like they weren't afraid of anything. Outside, in orbit above the burning world, the Dreth command fleet watched the destruction below. On the bridge of the Dreth flagship, High Commander Vorth stood beside a massive viewing window. His dark skin reflected the glow of fire from the planet. A Dreth officer bowed. "All resistance is ending, my lord. The Valcor fleet has been erased." Vorth smiled, showing sharp teeth. "Good, another weak race wiped away. Soon their worlds will serve the Dominion. Should we send scouts beyond this sector?" the officer asked. Vorth waved a hand. "No need, the Union will do nothing. No one dares to challenge the Dominion. We are the law of this galaxy now." But as he spoke, far beyond their sensors, a ripple of energy appeared, the kind that marked the arrival of faster-than-light ships. Back on the Argent Dawn, alarm sounded. "Exiting jump in 5 seconds, Lieutenant Price said. We're entering Valcor system now." The ship slowed, stars returning to sharp points. Before them stretched a sight that silenced the entire bridge. The planet was burning. Great plumes of fire reached into space. Dozens of alien ships circled it, their weapons firing down toward the surface. Carter's jaw tightened. "Open wideband channel." "Channel open, sir." "This is Commander Alex Carter of the Terran Defense Command," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Cease fire immediately and identify yourselves." No answer came. Instead, several Dreth warships turned toward the human fleet, their weapons charging. "Sir, they're locking on," Price said. "Then they've made their choice," Carter replied. "Target nearest vessel. Fire when ready." The bridge lights dimmed as the main cannons powered up. Energy surged through the Argent Dawn. A deep rumble filled the ship, then a brilliant line of light cut across space. The blast struck the Dreth ship head-on, tearing it apart in seconds. The explosion lit up the darkness. Every alien sensor in the system registered the power output, something they had never seen before. On the planet below, Laura and the refugees saw the flash in the sky. "What was that?" someone whispered. Laura's eyes widened. They came. In orbit, chaos spread among the Dreth fleet. More human ships exited warp, forming a precise, deadly formation. The Argent Dawn led the center, flanked by destroyers and carriers that spread like wings. "Multiple hostiles detected," Hayes said. "They're moving to engage." Carter stood still, his eyes cold. "All ships open fire." The battle began. Human weapons tore through Dreth shields with terrifying speed. Railgun rounds, moving faster than light, smashed into their hulls. Plasma lances burned through armor. The space around Valcor became a storm of light and metal. The Dreth tried to counterattack, but their weapons barely scratched human armor. Terran ships moved in perfect coordination, using old battle formations from forgotten wars. Every shot was precise, every move calculated. On the bridge of the Dreth flagship, Commander Vorth watched in disbelief. What are these ships? Their energy readings are impossible. His officers shouted over alarms. We've lost the outer line. Their weapons. They go through our shields. Vorth snarled. Send everything. Crush them. He didn't understand. He thought he was fighting another weak race, another easy victory. He didn't know that humanity had learned war from a planet that never forgave mistakes. Within minutes, Dreth ships began exploding one after another. On the Argent Dawn, Captain Hayes looked at the sensors. They're falling apart, sir. Their formations are breaking. Carter's voice remained calm. Don't let them escape. They started this slaughter. We'll finish it. Human fighters, small and fast, darted between the larger ships. Their pilots moved with deadly precision, striking engines and weapon bays. In less than an hour, half the Dreth fleet was gone. On Valcor's surface, the ground troops of the Dominion panicked as their command ships vanished from the sky. The rumble of explosions above grew louder, and streaks of burning wreckage began falling through the atmosphere. Lura stepped outside the tunnel with the others, watching the sky rain fire. For the first time, she smiled. In orbit, the last of the Dreth fleet tried to retreat. Their flagship turned to flee, its engines glowing bright. But Carter was already watching. Target their drive core, he said. The Argent Dawn's main cannon fired once more. The beam cut through the enemy ship cleanly. For a brief moment, the entire sky lit up. Then silence followed. On the human bridge, no one cheered. They simply worked, efficient and calm, scanning for survivors. Hayes finally spoke. We've secured orbit. The Dreth are gone, Carter nodded. Begin relief operations. Send dropships with food and medical aid. Tell the Valcor we're here to help. As the fleet spread out, human transport ships began landing across the ruined cities. Soldiers and medics stepped into the dust, helping the injured aliens. They brought water, medicine, and quiet strength. When Laura finally met them, she was speechless. She had expected strange creatures, monsters from the Deathworld legends. Instead, she found people, tired, serious, but kind. A tall soldier handed her a ration pack and said softly, "You're safe now." She looked up at the sky, where massive human ships floated above the clouds. "Who are you?" she asked. The soldier smiled faintly. "We're from Earth." "Earth," she repeated. "The Deathworld," he nodded. "That's what they call it. But we just call it home." High above, on the bridge of the Argent Dawn, Carter watched the rescue efforts unfold. His hands rested on the console, his eyes fixed on the burning planet below. Hayes stood beside him. "We did it, sir. They're safe." Carter gave a slow nod. "For now. But the Dreth won't forget this. They'll come again. Then we'll be ready," she said. He looked out at the stars. "They called us Deathworlders because we come from a place that kills the weak. Maybe they were right, but they never understood what that really meant." He turned to his crew. "Send word to Earth. Tell them the Deathworlders have returned." And as the human fleet stood watch over the freed planet, the galaxy began to stir. Rumors spread fast that the lost race from the Forbidden Zone had come back, that they had destroyed a Dominion fleet in a single day. In distant halls of power, leaders trembled. The Deathworlders were no longer legends. They were real, and they were watching.